Story 1. This happened when I was in high school and was a huge scandal. An 8th grade kid who was really good at basketball was allowed onto the varsity team. I guess being the youngest made him a target for some of the guys. Two of the guys held him down and a third jammed his fingers in this poor kid's behind. I'm not really sure of the punishment for the guys who did the assault, but they never came back to school for the next 2 years I was there. One of them became a pill addict and lives in the woods in my hometown. The kid who was assaulted went to private school after that. I ran into his brother at some point after high school, and last I heard he was in a good college, so hopefully he's doing all right. Story 2. One student insulted a teacher because she didn't pass him by saying, "I hope you have another miscarriage." The teacher had a miscarriage in the past, which resulted in her not being able to have another baby. The whole class was shocked, and the student was expelled. Story 3. Varsity football had a rape gang against freshman players for years. Principals and coaches knew but didn't do anything to stop it. Local police department came in and arrested every player, the principal, and the head coach during lunch. Story 4. A kid at my school turned out to be an arsonist who started multiple wildfires that ended up killing firefighters. He was eventually caught on his bike with a gas can, heading into the hills to start another one. Story 5. My school had special needs kids with their own classes. A small group of 5 students decided it would be funny to force a kid with Down syndrome to dance for them by surrounding them, shoving them, and throwing rocks. This was absolutely terrible, but when this was discovered, the reaction from the other students in the school towards those who did this was overwhelmingly negative and hostile, so they never did that again. Story 6. A kid from my high school tried to leave the country to join the Islamic State a few years ago. This was near Indianapolis. He was intercepted at the airport because he was never actually talking to the Islamic State and was actually talking to Federal Bureau of Investigation agents running a sting operation. Story 7. Killed another student on the school field. Asked another student if he trusted him and then proceeded to put a belt around his neck and tighten it. The one student managed to get free, but for reasons unknown, the belt got around his neck again. He was choked to death on the school field. The killer student said he would rather be in jail than at home. Story 8. He was a dealer and had a situation go bad in the parking lot at the school. He got shot in the leg and tried to just fix it at home. He bled out and died. He was a super nice kid. Just a really messed up family life led him into an early grave. Story 9. Strangled another kid until they went purple. What was wild was that other kids were chanting "kill" in a circle until the teachers broke the whole thing up. 2 weeks later, they were friends again. Kids are wild. Story 10. I've posted this before, but what the hell? In sophomore year of high school, my shy, bookish cousin started dating this really popular guy. A few months in, she heard a few guys in his circle were spreading rumors he was only with her because she did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. Which was ironic because they hadn't done much of anything at all yet. She was really hurt. She had never done anything to these guys, and she didn't understand why they would be trying to smear her reputation. I told her that her boyfriend should be the one dealing with it since they were his friends. She said she didn't want to bring it up because she felt like there was a distinct possibility he had started the rumor in the first place. Anyway, it turns out he didn't start the rumor, and he made his friends stop talking by threatening them. He threatened to beat one of them up. He told the second one that if he ruined this relationship, he would mess with his girlfriend, who used to be his girlfriend. And he threatened to out the third one. That last one I only found out about after high school, when he finally emerged from the closet. Not the most ethical means, but it did the trick, and he and my cousin are still together. Probably the most devoted couple I know. Story 11. The popular group at my school started a 10,000-pound club, and they were collectively trying to reach 10,000 pounds of combined people they've slept with. It made it on the local news. Story 12. My best friend's brother wanted to do the next big school attack. He was always an intense kid, a disruptive person without an outlet, so he'd constantly go for shock humor, usually about inappropriate topics. There were red flags like a 1950s communist parade that no one wanted to address. If he was home when you visited, you just knew he'd find a way to hurt you, and that was just part of life. Everyone knew it, but there just weren't any bigger forces around to put him in check. To this day, I wonder if there was something I could have done. But even if I somehow managed to stand up to him a couple of times, I know he would have just escalated it. Then I got my big confirmation of that thought. One day, we were in his house playing a video game on the original Xbox, in the room for the oldest three boys of the family, and then we heard pounding, breaking, shouting, and boots. A team of sheriffs kicked in the door, and then my brain went into shock mode. Just lights, guns, and people moving faster than I'd ever seen a person move in my life. Lots of pain and motion later. I was in handcuffs on the lawn with most of their family. There was lots of screaming, and the eldest brother was trying to fight his way out, which was a terrible idea. I was too scared to comprehend anything other than that I seemed to have been shoved down, cuffed, and carried outside. I remember thinking it was probably my fault somehow. I had to have done something or said something to the wrong person. I did actually get grounded for being there, but that's a whole different thing. It turns out the brother had a small arsenal of guns under his mattress and a handmade blueprint for his attack on the school, feet away from us, for who knows how long. I never learned where he got the weapons or how. He was put away for a long time, and I heard he washed out of military training for being that guy who thought he could fight a drill sergeant. Spoiler alert, you absolutely can't, and you're not the first to try. After that, I really started focusing on that kind of personality. It made my life easier in some jobs, but in everyday life, I still find myself studying most people I meet like I'm trying to analyze a serial killer, and it's definitely made me miss out on some healthy potential relationships. Anyway, I really dislike that guy. Story 13. Poisoned the science teacher's chinchilla. There was blood all over the cage and the animal's mouth, but thankfully the poor thing lived. No one ever found out who did it or what they gave the animal. This teacher was popular for all of the snakes and feeder mice he kept in his classroom, as well as the chinchilla, but after this incident no one was allowed in the classroom without the teacher present. Story 14. A kid put a pH indicator in a teacher's drink while they weren't looking. Most pH indicators, including this one, contain benzene, which is toxic. The teacher had to be rushed to the emergency room but made a full recovery. Another kid tried to do a backflip to impress the other kids, kicked a sprinkler, and flooded the building. Nothing happened because he was an administrator's son. One kid almost overdosed buffing vodka in the bathroom. A kid ate a Carolina Reaper from someone's garden hole at lunch and had to be rushed to the emergency room to get his stomach pumped. 3 girls in my graduating class dragged a random guy into the woods and tried to hit him with their car. They were found out after leaving him for dead when someone found the guy and got him to the hospital. When police asked them about it, they said they were bored. A kid was building a makeshift gun and had plans to shoot up the school, but a teacher found his manifesto on his school drive, and we had a line of police around the building for a few days. Hard to say what the worst thing was that happened there. So much tragedy. Story 15. At lunchtime, a kid was about to sit down with his lunch. One of his friends held a pencil facing upwards on his seat just as he was about to sit down. Stabbed him right in his left cheek. The scream has haunted me ever since. A whole crowd gathered around as he was taken away in an ambulance, and we never saw either kid again. Story 16. In elementary school, a kid threw a pencil on my bus that ended up hitting a girl in the eye. It was the outer side of her eye. She had to wear an eye patch for the rest of the year, but fortunately, there was no permanent damage. Story 17. My friend from theater ended his life in the school parking lot with a shotgun one night, right as we were performing the final night of our play. All of our families and friends were there. The whole auditorium was locked down, and no one knew what happened until after. He was a nice guy. He gave me rides home from play rehearsals and was always really kind. I never knew why he did it. Story 18. Called in a bomb threat from his cell phone. But what makes it worse is the administration moved all the students to the gymnasium. Then, I guess someone with more brains figured it wasn't a good idea to bunch all the kids together during a bomb threat. So they evacuated us to the soccer field. Story 19. We had an incident after every bathroom, except one on the far side of the building, was closed because students were smoking marijuana in the bathrooms. Defecation occurred in the hallways or on the stairwell 2 or 3 times over the course of a week or two. They reopened the bathrooms after that. A student with substance abuse issues cursed at a teacher over essentially nothing. I believe he forgot his book, and she reminded him to bring it from now on, and called her a derogatory term along with many other horrible things. He made a terrible comment wishing harm upon her unborn child. She was pregnant, if that's not obvious. She was a very kind lady and was crying for hours but still did not leave and continued to teach while extremely upset. A teacher who was involved with several male athlete students was arrested for having cocaine and methamphetamine in her purse. This was many years after I graduated, but it was still shocking. She was teaching when I attended the school. A freshman football player was sexually assaulted by several football players in the locker room a few years back. You know, the usual stuff. I could probably think of more if I really thought about it, but those are the first to come to mind. It was a rumor, but apparently, a girl was using cocaine in the bathroom at junior prom, and the fire alarm was pulled to create a distraction to get her out. She was reportedly the vice principal's daughter, and they wanted to escort her out of the building without anyone seeing her under the influence or witnessing her escorted out. Story 20. We had a school dance when I was in 7th grade. The oldest age in this school was 13 in 8th grade. A bunch of kids apparently decided to have a get-together beforehand where they all got totally wasted. Then they went to the dance and vomited all over the place. I wasn't there, but from what I heard, it was projectile all over the place, and the dance ended pretty fast. Dances were banned for the rest of the year. They brought them back the next year, but there was a cop standing outside the door, looking at everyone's eyes and sniffing our breath. I remember him stopping me, getting his face kind of close, and then saying, "Okay, go ahead." Story 21. Stabbing. A black kid used the Irish kid stairs and got stabbed for it. It was the start of what eventually escalated to a race riot. This was outside Boston during the busing controversy. Story 22. In 3rd grade, someone, whose identity remains unknown, brought a snake into class and left it on the floor. Once someone noticed it, we were all instructed to stand on our desks until someone came to remove it. I'm sure it was a harmless garden snake or something, but at the time, this was horrifying. Additionally, 2 of my friends put cannabis in their calzones in home economics, and it ended up filling the classroom with smoke. That incident is more funny than the worst. Oh, and now that I'm thinking about it, 2 kids behaved inappropriately towards a girl on the bus. One of them transferred schools, and the other continued to thrive as an athlete bully. Unfortunately, a 15-year-old kid also murdered his 11-year-old sister and parents, dragging their bodies to an in-law residence they were building behind the house. Then he had his girlfriend come stay the night. I guess I have a few stories. Story 23. I saw a girl shove a cold curling iron through another girl's face, tore her cheek open and broke teeth. It was the most brutal thing I had seen in a long time. Story 24. Drove around the high school track on a motorcycle a few laps during the first period. Took his helmet off and placed it on the track. Accelerated and drove into the gym's brick wall going 100 miles per hour. Story 25. One student committed suicide in 10th grade. I barely knew him or his circumstances, but I had a really hard time with that one. Beyond that, a 10th grader punched our algebra teacher in class because the teacher called him a liar. One shot and missed her. Teacher was on the floor. It was unheard of at the time in the early 1980s. That kid recently retired as the chief of police of a local town. Story 26. If you mean the worst thing they did, period. They murdered a physically disabled man with a hammer in his own home. Actually, in school. One guy pushed another guy face first into a brick wall and broke his nose for no real reason. Story 27. Not high school, but middle school. I knew this kid who had all sorts of violent hobbies. Making weapons, designing booby traps, etc. But eventually, his biggest one was arson. He just went around setting fires all over the neighborhood for many months, usually at night. He even tried to set the school on fire once. He was eventually caught, and his dad, a well-connected attorney at the time, made a deal to keep him out of jail or whatever the juvenile equivalent was. I think they threatened to try him as an adult. Anyway, his dad is no longer a practicing attorney. He's now a United States congressman who came in with all that Tea Party nonsense. For a while, I thought this might be a good bit of political intrigue, but considering the state of politics now, and the fact that his son is grown and, as far as I know, hasn't reoffended, I don't think anyone would care. Story 28. Year 5. The girl I had had a crush on since year 3 brought a birthday card for me and had everyone in my class sign it. I was so excited because I was the unpopular kid in my class. When I opened it, the card said, "Sign if you hate my name," and kids in every class in my grade had signed it. I just barely got outside of the school before I started crying, and I cried until I went to sleep that night.